If you owned a campground, what would be most important? You're listening to the RV Life Podcast. I'm Dan Hunt with my incredible wife, Patty Hunt, and we've got a great show for you today. Our guest today, well, he does own a campground, and he says the most important thing to him is the camper experience. I don't know. What do you think, Patty?
I totally agree, and I know both of us do, that the camper experience is most important when we go camping. Now, we're going to ask all of our listeners, do you agree with this or disagree? Shout out to us on social media at RV Life Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Put a message in there. Send us a private message. We want to hear your thoughts.
As we travel around the country, right now we're in Virginia. And I got to tell you, it is unseasonably cold here.
Cold. It's actually 58 degrees with some clouds. So, yes, it feels cold to us.
You know, I was watching a YouTube video earlier today, and it was one of those weather videos to tell you how the world is falling apart and everything's coming down on you. But I got to tell you, he was right on. There is a cold front that is kind of overtaking the whole East Coast right now. And I can really feel it. My bones can feel it.
And obviously, you look a little pale because over on our YouTube channel at Exploring Through Our Lens, we had a comment from somebody that's been following us for over 2 years from when we first got started. Dave, his name is, and he told Dan he needed to get out in the sun because he looked pale. And Dave's right.
Well, thanks, Dave, for telling me I look bad right now. But, you know, you probably do have a point. We've been kind of inside for quite a bit. And for those of you that have been listening, Patty had been away from me for a month. So I was kind of deadheading it myself from Florida up to Virginia. We just haven't had that time to get out and lay by the pool like we usually do all the time. Okay, there's that sound, and that sound means it is time for today's fun fact.
Today's fun fact is brought to you by Open Road Resorts, with 4 incredible resorts located in Idaho, Montana, and Texas, where you can discover nature and make unique memories.
Unique memories. That's something I'm gonna trademark that one, because I got to tell you, 3 of these 4 resorts that these guys own, 3 of them are right in the area of Yellowstone. One of them is just 30 minutes away from the west gate of Yellowstone. And that Yellowstone, that area, that whole area of the country, it's got to be one of the most beautiful places that I have ever seen. Okay, fun fact time. What do we got?
Fun fact, in 2021, 56.9 million households went camping. And in 2022, it jumped up to 58.4 million households going camping. Can't wait to see what 2023 looks like.
Yeah, I'll tell you when we look at those kind of numbers, remember 21 still had a lot of COVID influence there. And the number grew in 22. But I have to say that coming off the winter in Florida, which is the most busiest time of the year for Florida, we never really got stuck. I'm not going to say it wasn't crowded, because it was very, very crowded, but I don't think we ever really got stuck.
No, we didn't. And understand that we rushed out and made reservations because we were worried about not being able to get them. And then we had to make a lot of changes while we were in Florida. And we were able to make those changes. I mean, we had to keep calling. We had to be patient and a little flexible. But we certainly had, places to stay. We didn't have to stay on the side of the road at all.
Right. We really didn't. And I think the moral to that story is a lot of people have made a lot of reservations, but a lot of people are also canceling those reservations. So it doesn't matter where you want to go. If you keep trying and, keep exercising your fingers on the keyboards, I think you'll probably or most likely get that reservation wherever you want to go.
I agree. And yes, it takes some doing, but patience is definitely what it's about, and consistency.
Patience and consistency. And I would love all of you to be consistent as you listen to the RV Life podcast, just like those 56.9 million households that went camping last year. Now, this part of the podcast was brought to you by Open Roads Resorts. These guys that own this resort, they really, really are good people. They're the kind of people that we want to do business with. They're the kind of resorts that we want to go to. We just love these guys, and you're going to hear more from these people right after we get to the break today on RV Life Podcast.
The most important part of your RV is the roof. If your roof leaks, your trip and your RV get ruined. You can take it to a dealership or service center to be maintained at their expensive rates. Or you can maintain it yourself over a weekend for a fraction of the cost. Liquid Rubber RV roof products will keep you dry and leak-free. Visit shopliquidrubber.com/RVLife. Use coupon code RVLifePod15 to save 15%. That's shopliquidrubber.com/RVLife.
National Indoor RV Centers with over 1,000 motorhomes available across multiple locations. National Indoor RV Centers continues to provide an outstanding hassle-free motorhome ownership experience. National Indoor is the #1 Newmar dealer in the nation and also features brands like Integra, Winnebago, and much more. Visit NIRVC.com and become a part of the National Indoor RV Centers family. He graduated from TCU with a degree in finance and started his career in the corporate offices of Radio Shack. He quickly moved his way up the ladder to becoming a senior analyst for hedge funds that invested in things like power sports, gaming, leisure, restaurants, and automotive companies. Today, he and his partner decided to buy a campground, and then another and another and another. And yes, now they own 4 campgrounds, and I'm not sure they are done yet.
Dan is talking about Chase Becker, one of the owners of those 4 campgrounds, and he's here today to talk all things campgrounds. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Dan and Patty. Appreciate it.
Okay, Chase, I think we got to just get it right out of the bucket here as we get started. Now, you own 4 campgrounds with your partner, but I got to ask the question, are you an RVer yourself?
So, yes, I actually am. Although I will caveat that with saying I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old daughter. So it's not the most or I guess I should say the easiest thing to do with 2 youngsters. But yes, absolutely, I own a 5th wheel.
That's great. And yes, having those little ones can be a little more challenging. Now, tell us, before you started the campground business, Dan touched a little bit on the things you did, but let's get more into it. What did you do?
Yeah, so I guess from a very high level, as you mentioned, I went to TCU, and thank you for not calling out the embarrassing loss we had to Georgia in the national championship. I appreciate that. I majored in finance at TCU and was fortunate enough to, when I was at TCU, intern at Radio Shack, and then also intern for a wealth manager who helped me get a job in New York City when I graduated, and spent my time for a number of years investing in leisure companies. And so that ranges from everything from the RV manufacturers like Thor and Winnebago to the dealers like Camping World, and then also, other verticals such as hotels and casinos. And basically my job was to analyze companies and figure out if they were worthwhile investing in. And so through that process, sort of developed a knowledge of the RV space and why consumers, like all of us, are purchasing RVs and camping. And so after doing that for a number of years, decided I wanted to do something that was more entrepreneurial, not sit behind a computer. And so was fortunate enough to talk to a good friend of mine who was a banker in the Dallas area, and he sees every business under the sun. And he said, hey, you should maybe look at RV parks. And so just started doing a little bit more research. I knew why people were buying RVs, and it was very fascinating to me. And ultimately did some research and found out that we wanted to buy one. So we bought our first one in the Dallas market in early 2020.
So, but before we get deeper into your campgrounds and how you went down that road, one of the questions that I get a lot is just for our listeners, let's just give them a little bit of an education. What is a hedge fund and what do they really do?
Well, that's a great question. There's a lot of different strategies. They invest in a lot of different things. So in my case, primarily invested in public companies like stocks. But there's all different kinds of hedge funds that invest in currencies and bonds and you name it. But my experience was primarily tied to investing in, household companies that you think of: Thor, Winnebago, Harley Davidson, Polaris, Wynn Resorts, Hilton, Marriott, those types of things. So, it's a lot of getting to know these companies and what are the key drivers of their business model, and developing relationships with senior management, and ultimately trying to inform, make the best decisions possible. And you're a fiduciary for your, the hedge funds clients, which a lot of times is pensions and retirement funds, and trying to, help people generate solid returns for their portfolios and retirements.
Now, I'm going to say the RV, the camping, this whole industry, Patty and I have done a lot of research on the industry, and it is a multi-billion-dollar industry a year. Obviously, the hedge funds you worked on, looking at things like Camping World and Thor and all of those types of things, Winnebago, all of those types of companies. So when your bank president friend said, hey, why don't you take a look at campgrounds? You already had a little bit of insight into the industry itself. Talk about, you have a business partner. So let's talk about that conversation about sitting around a kitchen table saying, maybe we should buy a campground. And
yeah. Well, my wife and I kind of joke about this, and thankfully my wife is amazing. She's super supportive of my career. I think if maybe the perception is if you went in and you told your wife you want to leave the hedge fund industry to go and buy RV parks, she might, think that you might be filing for divorce sometime soon. But actually, my wife's amazing, and she was always very supportive. And I think, very high level, I wanted to do something that was entrepreneurial. I spent 15 years developing relationships and a knowledge in an industry that I grew to love. And I didn't want to, when I made the decision to step away from doing sort of the hedge fund world, I didn't want that knowledge to go to waste. And when I met with my good friend who was the banker, he told me, he said he had a friend that he was loaning on the development of an RV park in the DFW area. And so he connected the two of us and sort of picked his brain, very high level. And then I started digging deeper, and just very simply, in the last 3 to 5 years, even pre-COVID, the industry was making 400 to 500,000 units a year. And there's a huge supply constraint on the number of new RV sites in the market. And so I spent a lot of time trying to understand, where are those bottlenecks geographically. And one of the areas was, fortunately, I live in Dallas, and that was helpful to be able to kind of focus on this market first. But yeah, it was an interesting revelation, to say the least, that I would be looking at RV parks. Never thought I would be doing that in my previous world.
No, and I've got to say that your wife is incredible, as you say, because it does sound like a crazy transition going from the career that you had to, I want to be an entrepreneur and buy some campground. So, yeah, kudos to her. Seeing that need and filling it, I think that's some great advice for people. Like Dan comes up with some crazy ideas. So the way we got started in the RV world, we're full time. It was during COVID, and he called me up to the office and he said, "Hey, let's sell everything and buy a campground and go RVing full time." And I was like, "Wait, what?" I just started laughing. And I thought it was nuts. Like, I wasn't necessarily the immediately supportive wife. I thought it was crazy. So here we are over 2 years later, and I'm in it. I'm totally in it. So you made that shift from job to entrepreneur, and it's working for you, right? You've got 4 campgrounds now. It's really working out for you.
Yeah, it's been an adjustment for sure. I really love it. Number one, I love the people in the RV industry, and that ranges from the people that you meet at the campground every day, to the employees, to people that we know that work in the RV industry for the manufacturers and suppliers, just all the way across the board. Like, the most senior people for the RV manufacturers are just some of the nicest and most humble people. So really enjoy working with them on a day-to-day basis. It's really, honestly, it's been a blessing.
It really is a blessing. And the people in this industry are incredible. We had the opportunity on this podcast to interview Casey, who is the president of Newmar Corporation, and also Jeff, who is the president of Freightliner. The people, the inside people in this industry, the core, but it comes from the top down, but it's also about the people in the campgrounds. It's just amazing that the culture of the campground industry is so supportive all the way around, from the top all the way down.
Yes, and that's what I think I loved and I was attracted to. Now, you keep referring to your business partner. Tell us his name, because you're both partners in this. What's his name?
Sure. His name's Jim Omstrom.
So is this something that he's done? Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, so Jim and I have been really good friends for over a decade. He and I actually did the exact same thing in our previous life. And I broke off at the very end of 18 and sort of started really focusing on the RV idea in early 19. And from the very beginning, Jim was still focused on doing, the hedge fund business. But he was a very supportive partner. And he sort of allowed me to kind of run with being more entrepreneurial and being supportive in a lot of different ways. And so the one thing I would say that, Jim and I, we get along very well. I think we have a relatively similar vision. I think both reasonably level-headed in terms of decision-making. Look, I think one of the things that was great with Jim was, from having sat in his seat, I know how stressful that is when you're working in the hedge fund world, and he was still able to dedicate time and resources, which, I think sort of made me feel a little bit emboldened that we were doing the right thing. And about a year ago, Jim actually quit the hedge fund business and came into the business full time. So, we run it lean. It's Jim and I are sort of like, a 2-man band that kind of handle a lot of the things that don't happen, day to day at the park level, but we're still very engaged with our general managers, who are phenomenal. We don't outsource this to others, which frankly, maybe some of the stuff we should. Maybe we have a delegation problem, but no, Jim's been an amazing partner, and I think certainly, we wouldn't have been able to do this without him being as involved as he has been.
So I'm going to say the two of you are hands-on with the campground. You didn't just buy it and sit in some gushy office somewhere. How do you think that affects the campground and the quality of the campgrounds that you own?
Great question. I would say, number one, you quickly learn how much you don't know. And it's a humbling thing. And I think, all the stereotypes that you would say of like people that work on Wall Street and hedge funds, like, they don't really, I would say in general, like you don't really understand totally how the sausage is made internally. So that's been a really, really great experience. And we've learned a lot. You wear a lot of different hats, everything from marketing to employee relations, customer relations. I will say this, like the one thing that Jim and I care very much about is the customer experience. Maybe I don't think you could ever say that to a fault, but I would categorize us as more of serial investors. If it's something that needs to be fixed on the property and needs to be addressed, within reason, we will spend the capital to make sure it's right. So there's no doubt, like, if we were not actively involved day to day, I think the campgrounds would suffer. That doesn't take anything away from the employees at all, but I think from a decision-making capability of putting capital behind things, I think it's important for the owners to be involved.
Chase, one of the things you said is you don't know what's inside the sausage until you really get down in there. I use that term a lot. Patty is from Philadelphia, and it's scrapple that I use the term with. You don't know what's inside the scrapple until you really get down and look at what's inside the scrapple. But if you're not there looking at what's inside of it, it probably doesn't taste as good. And one of the other things that you said, you talked about the time that you started thinking about, as you referred to, the RV thing. And timing is kind of odd here because it looks like you got into Dallas right before the world shut down. And then when the world shut down, you said, it's not going to stay this way forever. We're going to keep buying some more. So you bought 3 more campgrounds while everybody else was hiding under a rock. Talk about that timing experience with us. And were you scared?
I would say we were not planning on COVID at all. I think we thought it was a great business pre-COVID, and we first started doing our research on our Dallas park in early 2019, and as someone who's from Arizona originally and spent the summers there all the time, and then I live in Dallas now, we were always looking for something in the mountains and something cooler that, we could go and spend time with our families. And so, in 2019, we actually started a conversation with the owner of the Polson Flathead Lake KOA and the Polson Motorcoach Resort. So that was also pre-COVID. So I think like the timing happened that we closed on our Dallas park in January of 2020. I didn't know what I was doing at all. Just trying to figure out, how do we replace a breaker or something? I'm trying to learn as much as possible, and I'll be the first to tell you I'm not the handiest guy in the world. And we're pretty busy in February and then March, and then all of a sudden April comes around, and the whole world shuts down. And I'm looking here at our transient sites, and we had one guy in there, and I was like, wow, this is looking like a pretty interesting endeavor here. So I fortunately, obviously, I think COVID was a quote unquote benefit for people, introducing people into camping and getting outdoors. And for all the negative things that happened with COVID, and there's, obviously a lot, I think, what happened in the RV space was generally a positive and brought people in. So we closed on our other parks at the very end of 2020 and early 2021. And I think, honestly, if we had many more months like we had in April in Dallas, that may have altered our decision to buy more parks. I think it was just honestly complete luck on timing.
Well, luck is something that I think drives a lot of businesses, maybe even more than you hedge fund guys like to think about that it does. But luck is definitely a part of it. You know what? We have to take a break right now, but after the break, we're going to talk about the difference between a campground and a resort. We're going to talk about outside the lines of Yellowstone National Park and the hidden gems that are all over. And Chase, I'm going to press you and I'm going to ask if there's more campgrounds in your future. We're going to get to all of that right after this.
When traveling in your RV, how do you navigate? Do you use a paper map, a GPS, or do you use Google Maps? Our sponsor, RV Trip Wizard, has the solution, and it just works.
It just works. You know, we do not move our RV. I can't, you know, I talk for a living. I should be able to say our RV, but we don't move an inch. We really don't move an inch unless we put it into RV Trip Wizard. We strongly recommend it. There's a link for 25% off in the show notes below. But, you know, Patty, I think you and I looked at RV Trip Wizard and some of these campgrounds here, and it looks like they're featured on RV Trip Wizard.
They are, which means you could go into RV Trip Wizard and do a filter and find these campgrounds that the campgrounds that we're talking about with Chase. Now, I got to tell you, I got to be totally honest and transparent here. As I was preparing for this interview, I had to figure out where these places were. I am geographically challenged. So I did notice that Yellowstone is kind of in there between Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. My education for the day. And you have not one, not two, but 3 campgrounds in that area. So as Dan and I plan on coming across the country in the summer, we will be able to hit at least 2 of these campgrounds. I'm excited about that. Now, we talk about, before we get any further, let's talk a little bit. There's debate. I see it on Facebook. The difference between a campground and a resort. What are your thoughts or feelings on that?
Yeah, it's funny. So our parent company, which we label as Open Road Resorts, it's kind of a catch-all that we have our parks underneath. We spent a lot of time actually thinking about, like, can we call this resorts, Open Road Resorts? Because I think while we've got some unbelievable and beautiful campgrounds, I don't know that you would categorize them all as resorts. So our Dallas property, it's actually called Dallas Northeast Campground. It's an unbelievable property. I would say I would put it up against almost any RV park in North Texas. We've got an amazing pool. We've got a 5-acre fishing lake. We've got on-site grilling, dog park. There's a lot of things, but what we don't have is it's not all asphalt roads. It's not every site is full on concrete. We don't have outdoor kitchens like we have in Polson. Beautiful property, but I would not call that a resort. If we go to our Polson Motorcoach Resort, which is in Polson, Montana, it overlooks Flathead Lake. Probably one of the most picturesque and beautiful settings I've ever seen. You've got everything I just described that Dallas is not, asphalt roads, concrete pads, unbelievable custom kitchen build outs, shade structures. It's just a totally different animal. So now I would categorize that as maybe towards the very highest of the high end. There's clearly some middle area there of what's a resort and what's not. But I'd ask you, I mean, how do you guys think about what's a resort in your mind?
And that's exactly what I was going to say. It's funny because you see this debate on social media in the groups all the time. In my mind, I would categorize your campgrounds as resorts because by definition, it's anything that has other amenities is the quick answer. So for me, you talk about asphalt and concrete slabs for where we park. Sometimes, for Dan and I, we don't want that. We want to be out in the, more rustic type feel. So the fact that there's the outdoor grill and all those other amenities in some of your other campgrounds or resorts, that's cool. And I like that at times, but I'm still looking to come to Dallas and check that out because it looks beautiful. So the debate rages on. There's no final answer here.
I have to say that when I go into a place that is well maintained and they have amenities, yes, by the rules, it could be called a resort. We went into one campground at one time in our career where they actually made you get out of your RV at the gate and they parked your RV for you and they hooked it up for you. And when I got there, there was a cord of wood on the pad and they asked if they could bring a massage table over for Patty to have a massage at the site. So that to me is an ultra resort. That's so you have something to aim for. But I don't know. You know, that is a question, and it is one of the arguments that we see everywhere between a campground and a resort. But all your campgrounds or all your resorts have pools, right?
So Red Rock does not have a pool. That is one that I would tell you we've got a very limited season that's close to 7,000 feet of elevation. I think we could probably put a pool in. I think people would love it, but I mean, well, everybody, but I guess maybe the manager would love it. I don't think they'd love to care for it. And I can't blame them for that.
Yeah,
Well,
no. A hot tub might be a better way to go because you could
There you
use
go.
it longer. But now that you're talking about seasons, let's talk. We did talk about your campground. We're just going to call them resorts because that's how I'm defining them. Your resort in
Okay.
Dallas is year-round, correct?
That's correct. Year round.
And then the other three, tell us about them because they are not year-round. I know I don't want to be in Montana in the middle of the winter. So tell us about the other three and the season, what the season looks like.
Sure. Yeah. So Dallas is year round. We're pretty much, I would say, we're busy year round. We're thankfully, 45 minutes from downtown Dallas. We're far enough, I think, away for people that want to do some local camping and get away for the weekend, but also we're a quarter of a mile north of I-30. So we get a lot of people that are, traveling and passing through. The other parks, so Red Rock, just outside of Yellowstone, West Yellowstone, that property opens May 10th. This year, we've gotten absolutely blanketed with snow, so we're not going to be opening until May 20th, and then we close at the end of September. So it's a very limited season there. And then in Polson, Montana, where we've got the Polson Flathead Lake KOA and the Polson Motorcoach Resort, that actually opens a little bit earlier. We open on April 15th, and then we close on October 15th. So, we don't get quite as much snow in Polson. It doesn't have the same elevation that Island Park does with Red Rock. So, but yes, I will tell you though, while they are seasonal in terms of operating them day to day, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes when we're closed. Sometimes I feel like I'm busier in the off season than during the season.
Chase, you talked about your one property that's part of the KOA, kind of a franchise system. And I know it's not really a franchise system, but it's kind of like a franchise system. As an owner, let's talk about a campground owner and the decision process to go into a structure like KOA. Do you feel that's been a positive or negative, or maybe not either one of those things as you went into that as a campground owner?
100%. I can't say enough nice things about KOA. Number one, they're unbelievably responsive with their corporate staff and billings, and their technology. I've found their technology to be fantastic. I'm a numbers guy, and so one of the things that's very cool is at any point in time on my phone at any time of year, I could pull a report on how the business is performing. And that type of transparency for a new business owner, I think is really important. And I would say, I've gotten the question before, like, would you ever convert Red Rock to a KOA? I don't think we legally probably could do that. I think there's another KOA that's too close, but I would say I definitely think KOA offers a lot of positives for campground owners, and particularly ones that are still trying to figure out what they're doing. And, while we owned the Dallas park, it's a very different style park than our Polson KOA. I mean, our Dallas park is, largely monthly. We do have some transient, but it is not an outdoor hotel. And I would categorize, the Flathead Lake KOA is very much an outdoor hotel. People coming in for 2 or 3 days at a time, and having the support from KOA has been fantastic. I really honestly couldn't say enough good things about them.
That's great. And I don't think we've had the opportunity to stay in a KOA. So now I think we're going to need to.
Hey,
Yeah, I think you just sold me on KOA.
Anytime, just let me know.
Okay, great. Well, we are going to plan our trip up there, so we'll talk about that. But let's talk. Here it is, May 1st. You said the one campground's going to open and the other one not till May 20th. What about reservations? Can people still get reservations this summer in any of the 4 parks? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, we definitely, I would say, have selective availability. July is probably what I would say is our most well-booked month, which is not surprising. That's the way it normally is. The one thing that is maybe a little bit different this year than the last couple of years is at our parks, which I would categorize outside of Dallas, but the Yellowstone and the Flathead/Glacier area, people were booking those 6 to 9 months in advance the last couple of years. And while we have had a lot of people still book early, I think there's less of this frantic, like, I got to get my spot or there's no chance I'm going to be able to go visit there. And so I think you're seeing like a normalization of the booking pattern. So, which is probably great news for all the people that got into the RV space that like to have some flexibility in their schedule and not feel like they have to book things, 6 months in advance and feel like they're absolutely wed to a schedule of where they're going to stay. So I would definitely say, look, we've got availability this summer, and for people that are looking to make the trip kind of to the Pacific Northwest, we'd love to host you.
That's great. And this, again, is a conversation over and over and over again on social media and the groups that I'm in, as far as, because people would book for a whole year in a panic. Like, if I don't book for a year, I'm never going to get a spot. So you're saying there's still possibilities for spots. You said July tends to be a little busier. But if it's June and I decide I'm going to go to the Pacific Northwest, what's the best route? Because sometimes you get cancellations, right? So what would be my best bet if I'm flexible? Because like for Dan and I, we fly by the seat of our pants. We planned, we do all this planning, and then things get changed. We get called to speak somewhere. So how would that look for somebody who says, okay, it's June and I want to go to the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, I would say, every day, regardless of whether it's in Polson or at Red Rock around Yellowstone, we get people that call us the same day, and we're usually able to accommodate. I mean, we have cancellations. Even if we were booked up, chances are we're going to have, we can play some Tetris in our system and try and move some things around to try and accommodate you.
That's absolutely incredible. And I think that's something that people need to understand. Sometimes when you call someplace, they say, well, we don't have anything. I think it's a really good idea to keep calling back and keep looking online, because as you say, the Tetris game of people canceling and people having put those reservations out a year ago and say, well, I don't want to go there now. I think that all of that stuff kind of plays into the entire camping system around the entire country. Now, Chase, I want to talk a little bit about the location of 3 of your parks. They're all in fairly close proximity to Yellowstone National Park, which in my mind may be one of the most incredible, beautiful places in the world. But you and Patty had a conversation as we were getting ready to do this interview about there's more to Yellowstone than Yellowstone. There's a lot of Yellowstone that's just right outside the lines of the national park where your campgrounds are located. Can we talk about some of those hidden gems that are out there? Absolutely.
Where do you begin? Yellowstone is an unbelievable place to visit. Tough to beat. What I would say is what we get excited about is when people come and visit Red Rock, and they, customers come in and talk to our staff and they ask for things to do. And you just see, our eyes light up of the staff. And that's one of the things that we really try to do is we try to encourage our staff. You're not here around Yellowstone as a work camper to work 6 days a week. We want you to go out and experience and check out all these places. So when the customer comes in, you can tell them all these cool places to go. And I would say as an owner, one of the best things is when a customer comes and has never been to your park and they visit and they say, I want to extend my stay. That is, in my mind, it's validation for your staff and your campground that you've done a sufficient job that they want to spend their time with you, which is really at the end of the day, like what this is all about. It's trying to earn people's time. In terms of what are the cool things to do outside of Yellowstone. So we're on the western side by the western entrance. We're about 25 minutes from the entrance. We are right next to a lake that's called Henry's Lake. Henry's Lake has the Idaho state record for largest lake trout ever caught. So it's kind of a fisherman's dream. We are very close to the Madison River, which is pretty much, Mecca when it comes to fly fishing. There is two lakes that are about 25 minutes from our campground, just across the Montana border. It's called Cliff and Wade Lakes. These lakes literally look like you're straight out of the Bahamas. That's how blue the water is. It's unbelievable, calm, tranquil. Go take a kayak up there. We've got a mile down the road from Red Rock. We've got this really cool place called Meadowview Ranch. And it is a place where kids come and do horse riding camps. And they do twice a week. They do a rodeo in the evening and a steak dinner for people. And this is like, I would say, if you had to say, like, what is one of the most unbelievable things you've ever seen, coming down the hill on Red Rock Road when the sunset's going down with this rodeo and a steak dinner, it is one of the coolest things you'll ever see. I could run down a list of 100 of these. There's Mesa Falls, Quake Lake. Call our staff. They'll walk you through all of them.
I love that. And Dan and I have been to at least 35 campgrounds / resorts across the country. And I love that you have your staff go out, see what there is to do, because a lot of time for us, we want to do the things that are the hidden gems. So that's amazing. Just the way you're talking about it, I could see pictures in my mind. I'm ready. Sign me up. That's incredible. So Yellowstone National Park, we'll visit for a day and then spend a couple weeks in these other places.
Okay, so Chase, I'm going to take a chance here and go off script or what we talked about. We were going to talk about, and I'd like you to tell me the story, and I hope it's the same story that I had. But I'm gonna set you up here and say, tell me about the first time that you went into one of these campgrounds up near Yellowstone, and you're now the owner of that campground. And it's about 10 o'clock at night, and you're standing there the very first night of you being the owner, and you look up at the sky and you see what?
Number one, it's unbelievably quiet. You don't hear anything, and you look up at the sky and it's the most unbelievable, breathtaking stars you've ever seen. And, someone who lived in New York City, grew up in Phoenix, lives in Dallas, you don't see the stars very often. So it was a pinch me moment.
A pinch me moment, and that's exactly what every one of our listeners deserve to have, is a pinch me moment as you listen to the RV Life podcast. Now, Patty, tell us a little bit about where our listeners can reach out to Chase through the notes below.
Yes, everything will be in the notes below. If you want to reach out to Chase, I'm going to send them to your website at openroadresorts.com and reach out to Chase with questions. All of the campgrounds are listed there. There's pictures. And I think, though, Chase told a story that, just paints a picture. When you're on a podcast, you got to paint a picture. And Chase, excuse me, you did a great job painting the pictures of these campgrounds, but we're going to have people reach out to you. You can reach out on our social media, RV Life Podcast, on Instagram or Facebook, ask questions, and let us know what you think.
Chase, thank you so much for being our guest today here on the RV Life Podcast. And we'll be back with more incredible things, including a tip of the week from Patrick Buchanan and a question of the week from one of our listeners right here on the RV Life Podcast.
Does dropping your Motorcoach off at the truck stop full of semi-trailers for new tires give you nightmares? Eliminate the unknown and get your new motorhome tires mounted while you watch at your campsite or wherever you are parked. Motorhometires.com takes care of the entire process for you. We come to you with your new tires, mount them, add balance beads, and we even can dispose of your old tires. With motorhometires.com, you'll also enjoy great prices and new tires with guaranteed fresh date codes, and enjoy sweet dreams instead of truck stop nightmares with your friends at motorhometires.com.
Protecting your RV investment means being ready for anything. An extended RV warranty from Wholesale Warranties is the best way to make sure that if an RV failure happens, you can afford to get back to enjoying the RV life as soon as possible. RV warranties are available for motorhomes, fifth wheels, and travel trailers, new and used, across the U.S. Visit wholesalewarranties.com for a free personalized RV warranty quote today and hit the road with peace of mind tomorrow.
You're listening to the RV Life Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Hunt, with my incredible wife, Patty Hunt. And today's guest, oh my goodness, what a guest that we had today. Just full of really, really cool gems.
Oh, yes. Chase Becker. Wow. I mean, we just got done interviewing him, and I'm like, I want more. I want to be able to talk to him more. He is just such a great guy. And he and his partner own 4 campgrounds, as you've heard.
Now, you know, this might be something for the RV community, because that's kind of what we did. We quit our jobs. We sold our house. We went on the road. We're full-time RVing. But ask yourself this question. Do you think that wherever you are in your life right now, that you could throw everything that you have gone to school for, everything that you have done up to this point, and said, I want to do something completely different, and then go do it?
Well, I know I did. I was a teacher for 20 years. I was 3 classes away from a doctorate degree and decided I didn't want to do it anymore.
I, for one, am glad you did not get that doctorate, because then I'd have to call you Dr. Patty or Dr. Honey every single time. And I don't know if that would work out for me.
Dr. Honey. Okay.
With that, I think it's time for and Pat Buchanan's RV Life Pro Tip of the Week.
Did you know that the RV Life mobile app now lets you access not only your active TripWizard trips, but also your tentative and archive trips for navigation? The new navigation menu is also easier to see and use, and separated more clearly by date. Of course, you can still download all of the trip data for your trip in case you lose cell coverage, and there's a handy edit button next to that download trip button that will take you into RV TripWizard on your phone's mobile browser to make any last-minute adjustments to your trip if needed. Another new feature from the RV Life team. I'm Pat Buchanan with your RV Life Pro Tip of the Week.
Thank you, Patrick Buchanan, for the RV Tip of the Week. Every week, I swear, Dan and I learn something new. We have been using RV Life Pro suite of products, RV TripWizard, for almost 3 years, I want to say. And we learned something new every week. Thank you, Patrick.
Now, today, after talking to Chase, I'm starting to think, I haven't talked to you about this, Patty, but I'm starting to think that we might want to change our summer plans and head out towards Yellowstone.
I can't disagree. I've been looking at their site, Open Road Resorts. Sorry, Open Road.
Cut. Stand by. I've been looking at their site. That's where I'll do a pickup in 3, 2, 1.
I've been looking at their site, openroadresorts.com, for the last week since I interviewed Chase. And oh my goodness, it's beautiful. I've never been to Yellowstone. I've never been to that part of the country. So yes, we might be able to talk about changing our plans.
Moving out to Yellowstone and spending the summer out there until we get to Hershey, where we're really excited about a lot of things going on at Hershey coming up this September, right?
September 13th to the 17th is the Hershey RV show. And not only do you want to be at the Hershey RV show, there's so much to do. So even if you're not looking to purchase an RV, there's seminars, There's people to meet. There's, all kinds of manufacturers and stuff, lots of stuff, lots of cool people to meet up with, and an event.
Well, yeah, that event is something really special. I know we've already had people requesting tickets for the event. We're going to be putting those out very, very soon. But we do like to tell you that RV Life is going to be hosting an event. There's going to be lots of prizes, lots of fun. Patty and I will be hosting the event. We're giving away an electric bike. We're giving away, what do you call that game? Cornhole?
Cornhole.
We're going to give away cornhole. And we have a couple other vendors that have promised some great stuff. So we're really, really looking forward to that event in Hershey during the Hershey RV show. You say there's a lot of things to do. Last year we were invited. Unfortunately, we had a conflict in another speaking engagement, but we had been invited to go to the Hershey Chocolate Factory. I talked to a family that did go to the Hershey Chocolate Factory, and they had the time of their lives. I think that's something that everybody should do at least once.
Absolutely. And I was going to say I've never been there, but I have been to Hershey. But the Hershey event lasts 5 days. So one of those days you could certainly go over to Hershey, check out the chocolate factory.
Yes. And, there is so much to see and do at an RV show. So we strongly recommend you get out there and go to that RV show. Well, you know what that sound is? It is time for our question of the week. This week, I think our question comes from Facebook.
It does. So we ask that people post questions, send us questions, private message. It doesn't matter, because every week we pick a question and we get an expert to answer, or we answer it, just to give information people are looking for. So this week's question is from Melody A., and she did post this on Facebook in the RV Life group. And she said, what kind of insurance should I carry and how much?
Wow, that is really a loaded question. And I picked up the phone and called our insurance agent and talked to her a little bit today. And the answer to that question is, it's really a personal answer. Wherever your state is, this is the one thing that she said to me, whatever your state is for vehicle insurance, you're going to want to carry at least the state minimums for comprehension and liability on your vehicle, just the same as you would a car. If you have a higher end coach, you might want to up those numbers so it will cover that coach. But, when you talk about that liability insurance question, it really, really depends on you personally, what your personal financial structure look like. If you won the lottery last week and you have $50 million sitting around, your answer is going to be very different from the person that just got a paycheck last week. So that's a very personal answer. I can tell you, though, that we personally are insured with American Family Insurance, and we love them. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah, they have been amazing. We called a number of insurance companies, and being full-time, some of them didn't want to deal with us. I know some of the insurance companies are jumping on board with full-timers, but I'll tell you, the people in American Family Insurance, and I'll put their name and phone number, so if they can't help you, they can send you to somebody. They just are so helpful, so patient, and we even insure our electric bikes through them. So I couldn't be happier about working with them.
They are great people. Now, there's some other big companies too, Progressive, Geico, even USAA, who we have our banking with and used to have our homeowners insurance with. They do have a program, but they don't have a program for full-timers. If you have, you're a weekender and you have a home still, they're a great, great option. They had some really, really good insurance rates as well. But before we move off of this topic, there's health insurance that you have to cover. And there's some sites out there. Actually, we even had a sponsor in the first 6 weeks of our show called RVers Insurance, and they specialize in RV health insurance when you're on the road. But that's the kind of insurance that you really, really need to, figure out what your doctor is, where your doctor is, what state you're in, because the answer to that question is different based on where you're at.
Yes, and that's again, I'll put it in the show notes. RVers insurance is a great way, at least to start, get somebody on the phone, ask questions to get more information, because people's situations are individual. They're different for different people.
You know what, Patty? This is one of those shows this week that it's like I don't want it to end. This was such a good show. I had such a good time. I'm having a hard time ending this show, but I do have one thing to look forward to, and that's next week's show, where we have the winners from the television show RV Unplugged. So we have the winners, and those winners aren't even winners till this next weekend, right?
Right. Okay. So to unravel all of that, the hit reality TV show that you can watch on YouTube is RV Unplugged. And Dan and I have been watching every week, and we are entertained. It is so exciting. And
I would say hooked.
We're hooked. We are hooked. And in the end, there's one winner who will win $10,000. Now, this weekend, which starts May 4th to the 7th, they're doing a rally in Texas. And if you're listening to this on Wednesday, the 3rd, there's still time for you to get a spot. And it's going to be an exciting time down there. Dan and I would have jumped in the RV and gone. We just can't do it this time. But you've got to listen as we interview the winners and get some background information on what really went on behind the scenes.
Now, we have to tell you that we are interviewing the winners, and we are interviewing them before the actually airing of that show. But they won't tell me who that winner is. I'm very, very stressed that I'm going to go into a podcast and I'm not going to know who I'm interviewing in that podcast until I get to the podcast.
Right, because I couldn't trust him to get on here and start talking and not drop names by accident. And since I don't edit the podcast, we weren't taking any chances.
Okay, so Todd and Tony, you guys have put a lot more stress in my world, but I am so looking forward to not only finding out who the winner is, but we're going to get some inside stories of what all of their internal feelings were as they went through and shot this show. I'm really looking forward to it.
I can't wait.
Okay, so that just about wraps up what we're going to be doing for this week. I hate to end this show, but all good things must come to an end. I'm Dan Hunt with my incredible wife, Patty Hunt, saying, have a great rest of today.
And an even better day tomorrow.